technical briefing on our publication today of final letter grades for 2023 for all 951 of the state's community water systems. Here to shed light on today's announcement, and we will drop these names and titles into the chat, our State Health Officer, Dr. Joseph Kanter, State Senator Fred Mills, and Chairman of the Senate Health and Welfare Committee, and LDH Chief Engineer Amanda Ames. As we normally do at the end of this briefing, we'll provide reporters time to ask questions. I'm just going to share a few reminders because we haven't held one of these technical briefings in a minute. One, this briefing is on the record. We're recording and we'll upload to our YouTube channel. That usually takes about 30 minutes to an hour after the briefing, so thank you in advance for your patience. Two, this is a briefing for the media, so thank you to everybody who joined, and we hope you find this useful, but we will only be taking questions from working reporters today. Third, reporters who do have a question, please just type your name and the name of your media outlet into the chat as you have that question. Our press secretary, Kevin Litton, will call on you when we get to the Q&A. And there are lastly, a number of us on the call, so we appreciate you keeping yourself on mute when you're not asking a question. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dr.
Allie, thanks so much. Good afternoon. I'm Joe Kanter. I'm the State Health Officer for Louisiana. Happy Monday to everyone. It's a beautiful day across most of Louisiana right now, a really gorgeous day. Thank you for taking a few minutes out of today to come join us. I'm joined by Senator Fred Mills and by Chief Engineer Amanda Ames. Real briefly, the Act 98 of the 2021 regular session, or the Community Drinking Water Infrastructure Sustainability Act, created a grading framework for municipal community water systems across the state. This was a multi-year effort of work to get to where we are today. And I want to begin by giving my most sincere thanks to Senator Mills, who championed this legislation at the drafting stage, through the legislative process, and through his work as a senator and as chair of the Senate Health and Welfare Committee, has shown to be a true champion for Louisianans' health. So my sincerest thanks to Senator Mills for his assistance and partnership throughout this whole process. We believe that residents of Louisiana have a right to clean and safe drinking water, that they have a right to timely and accurate information from their drinking water provider about the quality of that water, and that they also have a right to information pertaining to the likely ability of that provider to continue providing clean water in the future. That sustainability piece really is what this bill and project puts into place. It's a framework for residents to get accurate and timely information about the sustainability of their water provider. This creates transparency for consumers, for residents of Louisiana. It creates accountability for community water systems. And most importantly, it creates a path forward to make strategic infrastructure investments, high quality, high yield investments. We know that we have aging water infrastructure systems throughout the state, throughout most of the American South right now. What's important is that we have a clear pathway forward to invest smartly. And this lays a great groundwork to do that and empowers residents with information in that process. I want to thank sincerely the LDH engineering section services. These are individuals who work day and night in the background. Most of the time, unbeknownst to people of the public, you only know about them when things go wrong. But when they're doing their job, people have safe, reliable drinking water that they can take for granted. It's because of the hard work of the individuals in the engineering session, and I want to thank them specifically right now. People might not know that in addition to regulating water systems, they also play a huge role in providing funding for infrastructure investments, for future infrastructure investments. And that's a crucial element that they work day and night towards. I also want to specifically thank Chief Engineer Amanda Ames, who is a consummate public servant, a consummate professional, and works tirelessly, literally on behalf of Louisianans to ensure that they have clean and safe drinking water now and also in the future. With that, I'm going to hand it over to Senator Fred Mills, who again has been just a tremendous champion through this process and larger on behalf of the health of Louisianans. Senator?
Dr. Kanter, thank you. And once again, I have to thank Ms. Ames and all of her staff and yourself, because this has been, I guess, of over the 300 pieces of legislation I've passed in my 15 and a half years, I think this is the most important piece of legislation. I've never seen a piece of legislation executed logistically as well as you and your department did. And I do have to give a special thanks to Ms. Christine Peck and Ms. Brandy Cannon, who worked with Amanda and her team to develop, I think, a piece of legislation that is just absolutely, it hits everything. And Dr. Kanter, what you said is, I guess from my practical experience, I went to many meetings with LDH staff and public health staff, and I left these meetings like not everybody understands basically what could be the consequences of the water system. So I left meetings and maybe the water system had good, clean water, but the infrastructure maybe had 2 to 3 years of life left to it. And that would take multi-millions of dollars of an investment. But as I saw that, the bond commission really didn't know if that municipality should incur debt. The Public Service Commission, the rate setting folks didn't know. So this bill basically gives the agencies that would be funding these municipalities added information to make decisions on incurring long-term debt, on also funding certain projects that maybe aren't water related. What Ms. Ames and her team did is they put together a criteria from a grading scale of A to F. And we all know, being in the school system, we know what an F is and we know what an A is. And we know if you have a D, how can you get to an A or a B? Because that's what the public deserves. What I'm hoping to take away from this, and I want to tell all the press, thank you for being on the call. If you have a water system and your grade is a D or an F, there should be a conversation at the local level to say, what's the next steps? Then also there should be a conversation of, where are my neighbors next door to me? Because if you're in an F-rated water system and somebody's on an A water system just a few miles down the road, what Department of Health and what Louisiana Department of Health and the Office of Public Health is, consolidation is maybe the key. And what Ms. Ames and her team and Dr. Kanter and your team can do is facilitate that discussion of how can we get maybe consolidation going? How can we make sure that we're utilizing our money in the right way? So I would tell everybody on the conference call, especially the press, is my call to action is tell your readers, your listeners, or your viewers that if you are on a failing water system, there's action that can be taken. Meet your local officials and say, what is going on? What's happening here? If you're on an A-rated system, thank your officials. Thank them for what they're doing. And I want to thank all of you at the department, and I want to thank the Senate staff, our 2 attorneys that I'm blessed to work with, because this was a really, really tough issue to work on. And Ms. Ames, I can't thank you enough.
Okay. And with that, thank you so much, Senator Mills and Dr. Kanter. With that, I will turn it over to Amanda.
All right, thank you. And thank you, Senator and Dr. Kanter, for your kind words and for your support. And of course, I to definitely thank my staff. It's been, it was a heavy lift, but totally worth it. And we're very proud of this product. I'm going to present some slides for you and kind of go through a little bit about our program and what we do for those of you that don't know, and then go into the grades and some of the statistics. So let me pull this up. Second. Sorry. There we go. Okay. So I'm Amanda Ames. I'm the chief engineer. I've been with LDH almost 21 years now, working in the engineering program. To give you a little bit of background about what we do. So from a regulatory perspective, we provide all of the sample collection and analysis, or the majority of it, for public water systems. We do inspections of water system infrastructure, and that's going to range between a 2 and 3 year period. We do compliance determination with all of the federal water quality rules and state rules. We provide technical assistance. We also review plans and specs for any new infrastructure that may be being built out in the regional offices. So If you have like a new neighborhood and they're going to run new water lines through that neighborhood, we would permit those types of applications. We also permit all things at drinking water plants, such as wells, treatment, etc. We respond to complaints. So we do listen to the public and what their problems are. We do a lot of site investigations to help systems figure out what's going on and get them the help that they need to get the system back up and running properly. We manage boil advisory information. And so as systems may need to issue a boil advisory, they notify our department, and we do notifications within our department and outside of our department. And then we also monitor the boil advisory from start to finish, the samples that need to go along with that. And then we let the systems know when they can release their boil advisory. And then last but not least, we do a lot of emergency response work. So this may be due to a weather event or a hurricane or even a freeze. And we also have public health emergencies related to drinking water that we also respond to. So a little history about the Louisiana water systems. We have about 1,273 public water systems in Louisiana. And I would say that a public water system in this, when you look at it this way, it does not mean that is only publicly owned. It means that it serves the public. So it's important to note that you can be a private for-profit company that owns a water system, but you're still considered a public water system. Right now we have 954 community water systems. You will note that we only have 951 grades this year. That difference is due to 3 water systems that were added in 2022. And they did not have enough data to actually receive a grade for the whole 2022 year. So you'll see those grades in 2023. We have 319 non-community water systems. The difference between a community and a non-community, community is where your neighborhoods are, your homes, where people live. Non-communities, maybe a restaurant or a business, places where people don't live. And we have about 200 or so systems under formal enforcement for different reasons, for water quality, infrastructure, et cetera. And that kind of people come on and off that list every year, depending on how fast they can get into compliance, but it usually ranges around 200. In 2021, there was an ASCE report, also 2017, I believe, that issued a D grade to the infrastructure for drinking water in the state of Louisiana. It was estimated that it would take about $7 billion to bring it up to code. But we did a needs survey with EPA last year, and that estimate is now around $9 billion. 50% of our water systems have infrastructure 50 years or old. I would tell you that one of the differences between our grade and this grade is that the ASCE report primarily focused on infrastructure needs, and the grade, the water system grade rule focuses on multiple facets about the water system, not just the infrastructure. Small systems do have the most difficulty. 92% of our systems are very small, less than 3,300, and oftentimes struggle with, having certified personnel, keeping up with the regulations, having enough customers to sustain a long-term financial investment in the water system. So Act 98 of 2021 basically had 2 main focuses, accountability and transparency. And we needed to establish a rule for to give letter grades to water systems. And it also amended our receivership statute. So the old receivership statute that LDH had did not really allow for receivers to make much change at the water system. However, with the new Act 98, the receivership statute now allows for receivers to go in, if appointed by a judge through LDH, and make necessary changes to that system. And that could include getting in front of the rate setting authority to change the rate, maybe looking into consolidation with a neighboring system, et cetera. So now receivers have a lot more ability to actually make some positive change in the system. It's very similar to a fiscal administrator. From a transparency side, usually people only really get notified about their water quality when there's a problem. So that might be through a violation, or they get notified annually through the Consumer Confidence Report. Both of those, either a violation letter or the Consumer Confidence Report, use very technical language. And so we did not think that most people really understood the information that they were receiving, but everybody understands a grade. So this will definitely help with some transparency. So what constitutes a grade? It's based on 7 factors. Federal water quality violation, those are your health-based violations. So let's say that a water system had a problem with disinfection byproducts or arsenic or something of that nature, it would fall into this category. Then we have a state violation history. So there are some instances that Louisiana is more stringent than the federal government. One is our minimum disinfectant residual. So if you have a residual violation, maybe you don't have an operator, or you have a water outage where there's an event that your customers don't have water for a couple of days, that would all fall under the state violation history part of the grade. Financial sustainability. The rule required that systems have a rate study done every 5 years. And then also required for them to turn in their latest audit if they're a municipality or a business plan, things of that nature. Also, if you're under fiscal administration, that would have been accounted for in your financial sustainability category. Operation and maintenance. So this would be, does the system retain their records? Do they have a flushing plan in place? What is the corrosion like in their plant? Do they have leaks, et cetera? So these would also be things we would find during an inspection. Infrastructure violations. So this is kind of more of your pumps and pipes category. If you have broken components, things are missing, you don't have redundancy, you don't have a generator, et cetera. This is where that would be captured. Customer satisfaction. So one thing that we do receive a lot of calls and complaints over is brown water, which is generally going to be iron and or manganese. The health department does not necessarily regulate iron and manganese because they're considered secondary contaminants. However, that doesn't mean that people should have brown water. And you know, it's difficult to use water of that nature, even though they may not have a health effect associated with it. So we wanted to be able to account for the brown water complaints, and that's going to be your customer satisfaction and also your secondary contaminants. And I should say complaints aren't always about iron and manganese, but generally they are. So the systems were required to turn in their complaint log, which is part of another legislative act from a few years ago, and then we would validate those complaints. And so we would just look through and that was up to at least 10 points. We also looked at the complaints that we received at the health department for that part of the grade. So the secondary contaminants, again, that's more for capturing the systems that have the brown water issues. We were looking at their level of iron and manganese at their point of entry. And so that's going to be after treatment prior to the first customer. So your finished water, basically. And if they still had high iron and manganese, then that was counted towards that part of their grade. So here is like a table that kind of shows you the point system. For federal water quality violations, it was 5 points per violation, and then 10 points if you were under an administrative order. And you will see on the right side of the table that each category has a maximum number of points. One of the reasons is that if you are under an administrative order, but maybe you are also financially stable, you're doing all the right things, you don't really have infrastructure violations, and you're in line for funding, Just because you're under an administrative order in that situation doesn't mean that your grade would be an F. And vice versa. So what if you have no infrastructure violations, no federal water quality violations, but you might have brown water complaints? Again, that doesn't make that system an F. So, but the heaviest weight is obviously going to be on the health-based violations, which is your federal water quality. On this table, so a significant deficiency is something that's in our code that we would find during an inspection. So if anyone is kind of wondering what that means, and it basically means that we identified something that could potentially cause contamination of the water. So holes in casings, areas around that, could contaminate the water that need to be cleaned up, broken vessels, broken pipes. So we have a lot of things in our code that we consider significant deficiency. So the grades are based on a 10-point scale. And we did allow for systems to receive extra credit up to 10 points. And the way that they can receive extra credit is really, truly extra. They have to go above and beyond and do something that is outside of what they're required to from a regulatory perspective. So a few of these are different types of plans that they need to have in place to manage their infrastructure long term. So asset management, a storage assessment and maintenance plan, well assessments, participating in management training or capacity development. Both of those are really good programs that teach people about all of the technical, managerial, and financial sustainability factors that you need, to work long term. So anyone that participated in those would get 5 points each, up to 10 points. Grades are issued every May 1st, and LDH notifies the Bond Commission, Public Service Commission, Louisiana Legislative Auditor, and the Attorney General's office. So if you were, or if you are a system with a D or an F grade, your water revenue will be restricted to your water system sustainability and improvement only. Your debt may be restricted to water system improvement only. And you can have funding oversight by the Louisiana Legislative Auditor's Office. Also, you can be put into a receivership through LDH. Like I mentioned earlier, the receiver can now raise rates through the proper rate setting authority. They can develop a plan for the system, which may include consolidation with their neighbor, in the hopes that, the system would be corrected, everything about the system would be corrected, and that it would be sustainable long term. So here are a couple of charts. You may recall that we did issue a preliminary grade in January. That grade did not include financial sustainability or customer satisfaction or any extra credit that the system may receive. So the grades were pretty much out of 80 points at that time. And then the final grades are out of 100 points with the potential to have up to 110 points. So there was a shift between A's down to B's, as you can see. But I would say that, there's only about 15% of the water systems in the state that received a D or an F, which is about 5% of the population. So we have more than half of the population of Louisiana is on a water system. And we did have about 427 systems decrease from their preliminary grade to their final grade. And then about half of them did not change at all. Again, here's another kind of pictorial of how the grades came out. You can see that we had on the left is your count of systems by letter grade, and on the right is the population served. So the red would be the F grades, the orange is the D. And so we, majority of our systems are definitely in the passing grade. And these are the grades by LDH region. So you can kind of get an idea. So the region 1 is our New Orleans metro area. They really do not have a lot of water systems, but they serve a very large population. Region 2 is the Baton Rouge area and surrounding parishes. Region 3 is the Thibodeau area. Region 4 is the Lafayette area and surrounding parishes. Region 5 would be Lake Charles, 6 Alexandria, 7 Shreveport area, 8 Monroe, and 9 is the North Shore. Region 8 had the largest number of systems that had a failing grade, followed by Region 7. And then Region 9 had the most number of A water systems. I will tell you that, you have to look at the system count too. So Region 9 has a tremendous number of water systems, as does Region 7. So I guess when you look at it from a statistical analysis and the population, it's going to vary from region to region. So in summary, just a few notes. The majority of our systems received a passing grade. It is our first year, so we do anticipate that more people will submit their documentation for their 2023 grade. We did have a lot of people that did not submit information, and so we expect that will change after the first year and people are used to the new rule. We had 290 systems that received extra credit, so that's almost a third of our water systems that are actually actively participating and doing things in addition to their regulatory requirements. Another positive note, of the 15% of the DNF grades, at least 30%, and we know it's probably a little more, at least 30% already have funding underway, and that's either through the water sector or through our drinking water revolving loan fund. And we are going to take these grades and continue to work with our systems that are struggling, provide them with technical assistance, funding opportunities, and some specialized trainings that we have available to them. So thank you, and definitely answer any questions you may have.
Thank you so much, Amanda. Did anybody have any questions? I didn't see any anything in the chat, but if you'd like to jump in, we're happy to take questions. Jeff, did you want to come off mute so you can ask?
Hey, how's it going? Fabian, do you want to? So wanted to see, number one, whether it's possible to get maps or GIS files showing the boundaries that each of these water systems serves, or even sort of a general idea, since obviously in some of the parishes with multiple water systems, it may be difficult for people to know which system they're in. Also want to see if it's possible to get detailed data in a spreadsheet or CSV or something like that of the different ratings for the preliminary and final, all the different components of the grades for each system.
Yeah, I'll have to circle back with you on some of the formatting in the GIS information, but yes, I will get back with you on that.
Great, thank you.
Thanks, Jeff. Is there anybody else that wanted to jump in with any questions? Feynman?
Yeah, sorry. I just put one in the chat that about, I was curious, it seemed like a lot of systems moved either up or down, perhaps more, at least more than I expected. And so I was just wondering what you guys think accounts for that.
So between the preliminary and the final, the systems were required to turn in the score in the final grade is based on information the system sent to us. So we did have a very large number of systems that just did not submit anything. or things that they submitted were not going to, they weren't a document that we could use. So again, this year, we're going to look at a lot more outreach and making sure people understand the requirement of reporting and the documents that they need to submit to us.
I can add to that just a little bit, Damon. The preliminary grades that were released in January were just that. They were preliminary. They were intended as a dry run to make sure that this rubric works well and that systems understood the different parts of data that would be necessary for the grade. So there was wide expectation that the grades would ship in many cases because it was intended really just to get people's feet down and get the data flowing the way it's supposed to be. So that fairly was expected. I do want to point out in a larger scale here, as Amanda said, over 65% of our systems got an A or B. So by and large, the infrastructure is strong in Louisiana. There were 15% of our systems that got a D or an F, and collectively they account for about 5% of the state's population. And what's important is not those letter grades. What's important is that this provides a pathway for improvement, a pathway for sustainability. That's really the takeaway here. When you start perusing each system's grade breakdown, it's available online now, it's apparent that these are not gimme grades. These are considerable goals, in some cases aspirational. This is a good framework to build on, and we think in time it will help incentivize sustainability. That's the largest takeaway here.
Great, thanks, Dr. Anybody else have a question that wants to jump in? Didn't see anything else in the chat. Well, if nobody else has any other questions, I think we can wrap up. Did you want to wrap up, Allie?
Sure. Thanks, Kevin. And thank you to everybody who joined us today. As you know, you can follow up with me and Kevin if you do have follow-up questions. Kevin, maybe you could drop our email addresses into the chat, but you can follow up with us directly. We'll get you the answers that you need. Jeff, I heard that there'll be some follow-up we can expect from you. But thank you all again. Thank you for your reporting, and we hope you have a great day.
Thank you all.
Thank you.